don't know what is wrong with that Zoom. It was working last time. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, cool. The looking glass self. Cooley coined the phrase, the looking glass self, to describe the process through which children and adults develop a sense of self from the reactions and behaviours of others around them. Cooley emphasised that the self emerges not just from who children are in terms of how they look, but also from how they are seen by others and how they imagine they are seen, as well as how others relate to them. See also chapter 4. I'm going to have to change my page marker because I've got it written upside down, and that's affecting how I'm reading the line that it's marking. Out the way, Elvis, on the chair. How we see others, for instance, may be influenced by their age, appearance, and behaviour. Stereotypes and assumptions, for example, of gender, unknown abilities, and any observable disabilities may guide an expectation of how they may behave through verbal or non-verbal communication. We may add to our initial impression by evaluating how the person speaks and presents themselves, perhaps taking cues from their accent and assumptions about their cultural heritage and social status. This is a complex social process. In her research exploring children's perspectives and experiences of school, sociologist and anthropologist Alison James set out to understand the importance of the body as a way for children between 4 and 9 years to express their identity and sense of self. James suggests that through noting and recognizing differences between one body and another, and through having their own bodies singled out, children learn to distinguish between anybody's body and their own, and between normal and different bodies. Through ethnographic research, she observed 5 characteristics of the body that had particular significance for the children she studied. These included height, shape, appearance, gender, and performance. She recounts how each of these characteristics influence children's emerging identities and their interactions and relationships with others. Children typically focus on height and weight to mark social rank within particular groups. The relationship between concepts of body size and those of social identity may become critical for children whose bodies refuse to grow at an appropriate rate. By the ages of 8 and 9 years old, height has become quite literally a quantifiable measure of social status and consequently also of identity. As a measure marking progress towards becoming an adult and obtaining a position of maturity, height affords children status and potential power. Alice Palmer carried out an ethnographic study exploring how children came to know and understand bodies. She suggests that many children look forward to growing taller, partly due to the social status conferred to those who are bigger within their social groups, as a young boy Harry describes. I want to be taller because if anyone mean to me, I can say, "Don't say that," like at home. I wasn't very happy. Well, I was just having a bad morning this morning, and everyone was in a bad mood. And I'd like to be taller because it would make me more powerful. Being seen as big, however, is not always viewed positively by children. In a research exploring children's views on bodies, Palmer describes some children concerned with being regarded as big or fat and being picked on as a consequence. She further describes how many engage in body work in order to change their presentation of their body, the body's actions, as well as how their body looks. Such an attempt to look thinner or taller, for example, is important also to recognize that being taller for a young boy might be more highly valued than for a young girl. Similarly, ideas about height and weight are very much shaped by social cultural values. I personally put it down to an experience where you have to be this big to ride this ride at the pleasure park. Hence why you want to be bigger. Judgments about bodies are marked by assumptions made about their gender, their race, their ethnicity, their class, and their natural abilities, as well as their age and perceived attractiveness. As a process of othering, children's bodies can be categorized as tall, small, thin, or fat, and set apart from different in some way. Chapter 8 examines how the way in which people talk about and understand disabled children reflect implicit beliefs about the nature of difference and disability, which goes on to affect how these children are treated. Take, for example, the experience of dwarfism. In humans, dwarfism isn't typically classified when an adult is less than 4'10" inches in height. Although the average adult height among people with dwarfism is 4 foot. There are many types of dwarfism, including disproportionate dwarfism, which is characterized by either short limbs or short torso. The most common and recognizable form of dwarfism in humans is genetic disorder achondroplasia, whereby all the limbs are small. Growth hormone deficiencies is responsible. All the limbs are small. Growth hormone deficiencies is responsible for many cases of dwarfism. Tharina Goose and Claire Harvey state that throughout history, persons with profound short stature have primarily been regarded in negative terms. Despite normal intelligence, children and young people globally experiencing dwarfism have been othered in quite different ways, seen as freaks, mythical creatures, and in possession of magical powers. Dwarfs have been ridiculed and marginalized. Laura Backstorm describes how historically dwarfs have been sought as entertainers and objects of curiosity due to their unusual stature. And in the 21st century, Elvis, on the chair now, lie down. And in the 21st century, dwarf performers are still in demand. In 1990, dwarfism was classified as a disability, but there is some debate about whether such a label is appropriate. Growing up with dwarfism, the mighty, a blog written by Svea McNally. In my younger years, I was opposed to acknowledging my dwarfism. I was unaware that the reason I was being bullied in elementary school was because of my dwarfism. Instead, I thought the bullying was sparked by my personality, academic abilities, or the fact that I wasn't as perfect as everyone else around me seemed to be. I started to recognize that the people who were whispering, staring, and laughing at me were all doing it because I was a little person. It hurt badly. I cried myself to sleep some nights thinking of how I'd never have real friends because of my dwarfism. I stopped myself being myself. I stopped being myself at school. I was so insecure that I started acting out just to get attention from others and validate my acceptance among my peers. All of this has changed in the past couple of years. I realized I shouldn't be complaining about my short stature. I should embrace it and strive for success and change. As I continue my love of advocacy of dwarfism, I am not going to come up with excuses. I'm trying to create steps towards a more accepting and inclusive world. As I got into all the levels of my sports and school life, I have learned to stop using my dwarfism as an excuse. I play hockey, and when I skate, I have half the legs my opponents and teammates do. Take a single skating stride of my teammates, double that number, and your answer will be how many strides I take. I don't have a long stick either, so therefore I don't have a long reach. If I reach for a girl with the puck, instead of skating to her and she ends up skating around me, I can't have an excuse. If my coach asks me why I reached for it instead of skating towards it, I can't say, that's my dwarfism made my legs not move. That's impossible. I have the same mobility as others. I just have to put more work into it. I never thought talking about mythical and stuff would be a bad thing for somebody suffering with, somebody having dwarfism. That's quite interesting. And mythically, dwarfs are not great magicians. They're quite limited. But that's probably a different discussion. The importance of understanding how bodies impact childhood is particularly pertinent for understanding the experiences of disabled children as both social constructions of the normal child's body and the physically of the body itself, and how it is experienced are significant to the everyday lives of children. According to Robert Cruz, however, individuals with certain physical statures do not necessarily view themselves as disabled, but more as bodily different. How they are seen, however, can profoundly impact their lives. They are multiple and interconnected ways in which bodies are seen, characterized, and othered, which influence the lives of children. And throughout this reader, you will consider how children's bodies are differentiated and constructed by virtue of their gender, disability, and race and ethnicity. Key points. Children's bodies can be othered by how they are seen by other people and by children themselves, characterized and sometimes marginalized as different, less than, and in some way lacking. Conceptualization of normal bodies can be contested. Disciplined bodies. Bodies can be weakened, become ill, or damaged, and children can put their bodies at risk. Bodies can be embarrassing. They can break social rules and can become the subject of concern over how they should be seen and how they should behave. As sites for concern, children's bodies are surveilled and monitored by adults, built upon the premise that they require protection, safeguarding, and control under the guise of what Valerie Steves and Owen Jones define as surveillance as care analysis of how bodies are seemingly controlled by adults unveils the power dynamic between children and adults and where adults often wield most power. Kate Cregan and Denise Cuthbert argue that young people's bodies are often sites for both concern and control. They describe, for example, how young people are viewed as capable and as having the right to choose how they manage, use, and place their own bodies, medically, sexually, and often in areas which pose risks, yet in another sense, risks such as drug use and sexual encounters cause concern about the ways young people use their bodies. Palm argues that children and young people's bodies are thus regulated and controlled through different media, including literature and music, as well as through adult pupil interactions based on ideas about how children and young people should look, behave, and use their bodies. Through her research with school-aged children, Palmer describes how these ideas begin during the early stages of education and schooling, where children's bodies are often required to be ordered, tidy, and neatly presented. Regulating the body begins at home with learning to eat, wash, dress, and use the toilet. But starting school is a time when the demands on the body become more prescribed. Being able to meet these demands successfully is necessary if children are to show they have become a good school child. Schooling the body. Classroom rules: looking eyes, quiet mouth, helping hands, listening ears. Listening ears involves learning to sit still in the correct position and how and when to speak or be silent, and how to regulate bodily functions such as eating and going to the toilet at the correct times of the day. School is thus a space where power is exerted over children. The UK and Ireland have among the youngest school starting ages worldwide. Although statutory starting age is the term after children are 5 years old, the majority start school when they are 4. Vicky Priest's research, which focused on children lived experience of starting infant school in England, reveals that a key element for these 4-year-olds centered around the physicality of the experience and how bodies are schooled. The following case study extract illustrates these experiences and are taken from some of Priest's ethnographic field notes and observations that were carried out in the first few weeks of the children entering school. I feel quite nasal when I read, it's quite funny. I'll take another break.